Now let's see if it pops up on here. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Now let's see if it okay, boom. Now we in there. So let's keep the party going, all right? I just had to make sure that the stream was actually going to YouTube. You know, sometimes when you set these things up, it doesn't go the way you want it. So let me pull this over here so I can see in case a comment comes through. Okay. All right. So that's in there. Okay. So now I can see everything. Look, man, when it comes to Adrien Broner, how to destroy a boxing career in 10 days. That is the AB story, okay? Now, when we say destroy a boxing career in 10 days, we're speaking metaphorically, all right? But, you know, these are 10 habits or choices that, repeated quickly and publicly, you know, accelerate decline. Adrien Broner is the perfect case study, not because we're trying to humiliate a human being, but because his arc, meteoric rise, superstar lifestyle, then a long public unraveling. You know what I'm saying? He just totally unraveled, man. I mean, this is the textbook of how talent without discipline dissolves, and that's the key word in all this stuff with Adrien Broner. Talent without discipline. And his shit fell apart. Broner had everything early on. You know, elite quickness. He had power. He had charisma. He had the sort of mouth that sells fights. He was a promoter's dream. He could have been a generational figure. And he could have been about billions. No kidding. Made $1 billion from boxing. Instead, the years show a pattern. Poor choices, unchecked behavior, and the trappings of instant fame. And they say when a person starts to make money, the real them comes out. And we saw what happened with Adrien Broner. He took it to the stupid. So I just think everyone needs to buckle in and just understand. There's 10 steps, man, told as seen from a cautionary film. You know, starring Adrien Broner as the tragic lead. Now, you know, you take a look at step 1. You celebrate the wins as if they're guaranteed forever. It's something Adrien Broner did. The first day of a career-destroying sprint is when you treat every victory like immortality. You take a look at Broner's early run, dominating at lightweight, going all the way up to welterweight, collecting belts, highlight wins, built enormous public expectation, man. But when a fighter starts believing that talent alone shields him from work, the hunger that built the career gets replaced by complacency. The lesson, don't retire the work ethic when you win. In Broner's case, early stardom created a lifestyle that often consumed the discipline that made him great. Talk about step 2. Let the party life move front and center. Day 2 is where the Instagram lifestyle replaces the gym. Public photos, nightlife stories, and a constant stream of parties create an image that becomes your headline instead of your work. He was trying to be a rapper. He was trying to be a porn star. He was trying to do everything but be a great fighter. Broner became famous for the party boy persona. Flashing money, late nights, a social calendar that distracted from training. In boxing, ring rust comes from too many late nights and too little sleep. The cumulative effect is predictable. Slow reactions, softer legs, and less focus. If you want to wreck a career fast, make partying the primary job. And that's exactly what he did. So step 3 of how to destroy a boxing career in 10 days. Embrace excessive spending and public financial theater. Day 3, flaunt the money. Fast cars, jewelry, public stories about living large, being with women. They're intoxicating. And they create pressure to keep taking high pay, low-risk fights instead of building a legacy. Broner's public spending became part of his brand, ripping up money, flushing it down the toilet. But that brand requires constant cash flow. When fighters prioritize instant paydays over long-term planning, they trap themselves into poor matchmaking, legal brushes, and desperation bouts that erode reputations. Spend like a king, and you'll find the kingdom disappears faster than you think. And Broner definitely was spending like a king. And what happened to his kingdom? Shit's gone now, isn't it? Step 4. Ignore discipline and training and dismiss the coaches. Day 4 is when you start to treat training as optional. When you won't come to the gym, when your trainer has to go get you because you're drunk, and you still won't come to the gym. The best fighters obsess about recovery. They obsess about nutrition and purposeful sparring. Adrien Broner's public statements and reported camps often suggested inconsistency, switching corners, shorter scattered camps, being drunk, excuses that undercut discipline. Once the fighter stops respecting the process, opponents sense it. Good example is Blair Cobb knocking Adrien Broner's tooth out his damn mouth. That would have never happened to a prime Adrien Broner. But hey, he started to ignore discipline, started dismissing the coaches. And what happened? Soft camp equals soft performance, and you get clipped the way he did by Blair Cobb. If you want to accelerate decline, skip the fundamentals and hope natural talent carries you through. It rarely does, especially with a hungry opponent that has the natural talent that you do, but has the discipline. Step 5, make your personal life drama public and normalize risky behaviors. Day 5 is where personal choices, relationships, public fights, social media meltdowns become headlines. Broner had public incidents and legal troubles that made him a tabloid fodder. Each headline chips away at the public goodwill and reduces the benefit of the doubt fans once gave him. You listen to everybody now. Nobody want to hear shit about Adrien Broner. Most people don't care nothing. They don't care one shit about him because he just burnt bridge after bridge and let fans down. When a fighter's name starts being associated primarily with the greatness in the ring and becomes synonymous with off-ring chaos, let me tell you, it's not even just about fans. Promoters and partners, they start to hesitate. The ring gives you a second chance. Public scandal often doesn't. And nobody wants to be associated with a troublemaker. You know what I'm saying? Step 6, adopt a short-term payday first mindset. Day 6 is the business pivot that kills legacies. Fighters who chase the next check, the influencer fight, or the guaranteed gate over meaningful competition are making a clear trade. Cash now for less long-term respect. Broner took fights and decisions that made sense for the wallet, but not for the resume. A crowd of instant cash can look like success on paper, but the long-term career currency is measured in legacy fights and competitive risk. If you want to destroy legacy, always pick the easiest, richest matchup. Adrien Broner should have never been fighting at 147, but you know, it is what it is. Step 7, refuse accountability and double down on excuses. That's all Adrien Broner does. He posted something the other day talking about he got another 10 years of fighting and everybody's going to see. Then he shows up on some of these platforms to be interviewed and he's drunk and harassing females. You know what I mean? When you get to step 7 where Adrien Broner, this shit is pure ego. When results suffer, the next step for a career crash is to externalize blame. Blame the referees. Blame luck. Blame others. Instead of taking ownership. That's Adrien Broner, 100%. Broner's career has had moments where accountability was lacking, and that breeds a reputation of being unreliable. Even hit the coach he had out there down in Florida. He couldn't deal with him no more. That's the same guy who used to be a cop who was coaching Devin Alexander. He said he couldn't do it. Drunk all the time, disrespectful, not showing up to camp. Let me tell you something. Coaches, the promoters, they don't want to invest in fighters who don't accept critique. You look at how close Adrien Broner and Floyd Mayweather were at the time. Floyd don't mess with him for shit. And you can't blame him. If you want the bridge burned quickly, never say I was wrong and never show humility. Adrien Broner has done nothing but just blamed everybody for his situation. Even when he tries to say, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong, he goes right back to doing the same thing. Step 8, neglect long-term health and ignore recovery. The 8 is the slow poison of ignoring medical advice, concussions, chronic wear, alcoholism. Boxing's real cost is physical and mental. Fighters who treat their bodies like disposable props ensure a short shelf life. Broner's many physical ups and downs, public training inconsistencies, and reported issues with conditioning showed how ignoring health undermines performance and invites long-term damage. If you want a record career, gamble with your health repeatedly like Adrien Broner did. In the end, that's what takes more than belts. It takes your future, takes your respect, takes your dignity, it takes your career. Step 9, alienate fans. Burn bridges with the audience. Day 9 is when the public turns. I think when everybody saw Adrien Broner punch that innocent guy out there in Las Vegas, that's when the public turned on Adrien Broner. The fans can be forgiven, but when the fighter shows humility, evolution, and the effort to rebuild, but when you're not showing any of that, fans ain't trying to forget anything. But a repeated pattern of poor opponents, social media taunts, failed promises, or canceled events, that erodes fan loyalty. Broner once had broad public interest globally, but over time, many fans grew tired of hype with no substance, tired of the BS. If your public persona becomes all talk, no test, then the crowd who supports you vanishes. And with them goes negotiating power and headline appeal. You destroy your bond with fans and you starve your career's oxygen, which is what Adrien Broner did. And then finally in step 10, you exit the ring without a plan. Adrien Broner exited the ring with no plan. Ride the wave until there's nothing left. Day 10 is the culmination. You keep fighting, but the fights no longer build anything. The last chapter of so many boxers' careers filled with paydays, mismatches, and a final humiliating knockout that defines how history remembers him. And that's exactly what happened to Adrien Broner. Broner's later fights in the rout, his career took a sobering example of how once promising trajectory can end with confusion and fragmentation. If you want the tragic ending, ignore the long game strategy and keep cashing checks until the market forgets you. And that's exactly what happened to Adrien Broner, man. He ain't making no money from boxing no more. No one seems to really have an interest in him. He can talk about coming back, but dude's not mentally healthy, physically healthy, spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy. In my opinion, he needs help. But we must also be honest about context, you know what I'm saying? Social factors, mental health, the pressures of sudden wealth, all that matters. Broner's nightlife and personal struggles don't exist in a vacuum. The sudden shift from scarcity to opulence and the loss of routine and the celebrity machine that rewards spectacle over structure all play a role. Still, these contextual factors don't excuse the choices made by Adrien Broner. He's the fighter who survived temptation to build symptoms. He's the fighter who chose to not build trusted teams. He's the fighter who I'm still not sure about, his financial advisors and the strict daily routines. I'm not sure about his willingness to decline frivolous offers. But what I'll say is, Adrien Broner didn't fight smart outside the ring. And inside the ring, he stopped fighting smart too. And you look at Adrien Broner's career, it shows how badly that planning can fail. I just think when you got these younger fighters coming up, man, it's really good to take a look at Adrien Broner and kind of spin the conversation as a 10-day destruction plan. And then make it a reverse blueprint. Instill daily habits that counter those destructive steps. Sleep, nutrition, consistent sparring, transparent finances, accountability to a coach, and public persona focus on the craft. These are all the antidotes. The only true defense of talent is discipline. Adrien Broner had discipline early in his career. That's why early in his career, Adrien Broner was a monster. He was a monster, man. But he, somewhere along the lines, set aside the discipline and picked up the bullshit. Too many fighters like Adrien Broner think talent is a license to live any way they want. Broner's life proves the opposite. Talent must be guarded with structure and discipline. We can dig into the most damaging patterns one by one with deeper analysis, First, substance use and partying. Public reports, interviews, and footage in Broner's career show a pattern of nightlife and alcohol-fueled behavior. Again, to avoid unverified claims, multiple public incidents and his own statements tie him to a lifestyle that prioritized late nights and partying. The correlation between those choices and diminished training, the focus is obvious. Reduced recovery, impaired cognition, slower reflexes, all which led him to getting embarrassed towards the end of his career in some of the biggest fights, and in particular by Blair Cobb. The long-term neurological risks from repeated fights, compounded by alcohol and poor recovery, are dire. Adrien Broner can't return to the elite level. It just won't happen. Too many years shed off his career, which was a very promising career. But for these young boxers, they must understand, drink too much, train too little, and the brain and body will pay later. Just look at Adrien Broner. Second, legal troubles and public incidents, man. Adrien Broner was in reports about being arrested. He was in altercation. All that stuff saps your focus, creates a financial drain, and damages promotional leverage. One thing about promoters, they hate unpredictability. Promoters got to put the money up. How they going to put the money up and don't know if you're going to be at the fight or not? Because you got your stupid ass in trouble. So that's what happened. Networks started avoiding Adrien Broner, and they avoid fighters who create legal headaches. They don't need you. A fighter's outside the ring problems reduce their marketability and make negotiations harder. That's what's happened to AB. Promoters prefer fighters who generate positive attention and show responsibility because they're representing their brand. From a career strategy viewpoint, legal and public messes are career tax. They subtract from headline value and shorten runway. Then you got financial mismanagement. Public spending without a structured plan invites ruin. Broner's flashy spending habits, while not uncommon amongst fighters, it just reinforced an expectation of ongoing big paydays. He thought the money was going to be there forever. Now it's not, and he's all messed up. Once income wavers, the pressure to fight for quick cash increases. And those fights often are the wrong fights. Sound financial planning, investing, and long-term approach to wealth are invisible scaffolding that keeps fighters safe. Adrien Broner doesn't sound like he did any of that. So he's without it. And as a result, he's become desperate. And when desperation rules matchmaking, the result is career dilution. Adrien Broner's been offered fights, but he doesn't want to take them because they're offering him fights against killers. Can't blame him for not wanting to at least be sober enough to know, I better not get in here with no damn a Santillan or those kind of guys. Even a Tevin Farmer and those kind of guys. Adrien Broner, there's no way in the world he can beat him. Nobody who's a B or A level fighter from 140 to 147, Adrien Broner can't beat him. He's smart. He knows. He's like, he ain't going to get me with this poor matchmaking. You know what I'm saying? I need to be in some kind of protective promotion. Some of Broner's managers and promotional choices, remember, they insulated him from certain risk early on, but the lack of consistent top-level tests in prime moments meant by that time he faced elite fighters, the gap had widened. Also, going to 147 didn't do him any favors, Broner had marquee wins, but also several choices that weakened his competitive standing once he faced elite opposition at the higher weights. The business model that protects fighters to sell them up the ladder can backfire. And Terrence Crawford need to be careful about this shit. The fighter gets famous, but not the battle tested. Fans respect fighters who take risks. but they lose respect for those who avoid danger. And Adrien Broner right now, fans don't know what direction he's going. They just feel he needs to get well, because most people agree Adrien Broner he's not okay. But you watch Adrien Broner when he was in his prime, social media, he used it to amplify his persona. Broner used social media platforms to create a brand, but that brand often emphasizes lifestyle over craft. The digital era makes it hard to separate private life from career. And I think you look at fighters who curate a persona around excess inadvertently, set a storyline that become difficult to escape. In Broner's case, social media reinforced the narrative of a party life, which later overshadowed the boxing narrative. And that's ultimately what brought him down. He just didn't have the discipline and didn't have a structure around him, and no one to really tell him, yo, stop, you're messing up. But he wasn't listening anyway. So to sustain a lasting legacy, social messaging should complement, not replace in-ring excellence. And Adrien Broner just wanted to be a superstar. And now look at him. And one of the things that really hurt Adrien Broner, is ignoring coaching continuity. He would not listen to his coaches. Very disrespectful, running his mouth, disrespecting them. But fighters who change gyms or lose trusted coaches often destabilize their careers, and Adrien Broner did that. Coaching is not just technical, it's psychological, it's accountability. A lot of these guys' coaches are like dads, uncles, father figures, mentors. Adrien Broner disrespected all of them. So that's why with Broner's corner changes and reported camp inconsistencies, it undercut the idea of a single coherent game plan across his career. And ultimately, that's why his shit just started, as another reason why his career started to crumble. The best fighters tend to have stable support systems that enforce structure. When that disappears, especially for a fighter who lacks discipline, the fight performances become inconsistent and fans lose faith. That's AB all day. Then you got ego-driven decisions, the desire to be flashy, to insult opponents, to accept fights for ego reasons rather than strategy is a common pitfall. Adrien Broner's public bravado sometimes masks tactical naivety. You know what I'm saying? I just think athletes must separate bravado from strategy. The ego test is, does this move advance my career or just my image? He fought Pacquiao. He went after the money, but that was a fight he knew he couldn't win. He didn't even try to win, you know what I'm saying? And that's why too often Broner chose image. Fighters who prioritize ego over legacy accelerate their own downfall. That's why Broner's exactly where he's at. Then he got poor recovery and weight management. Adrien Broner was known for drinking, smoking, getting fat, eating horrible. Wasn't able to recover. The weight swings, the bad dieting, insufficient rest damaged the body. Broner's later bout showed conditioning problems at times. He should have been at 140. He ain't had a discipline to get back down to 140. You know what I'm saying? He says, facts. Yo, what's up, Vinny? He ain't had a discipline to get back down there. You know what I'm saying? The modern sport requires meticulous recovery protocols. I'm telling you from firsthand experience, you got to sleep. You got to have a proper nutrition. You got to have, the right therapy. Measured sparring, not in there fighting to win. You can't be in wars. Shit's got to be controlled and structured. Broner probably hadn't had that in the last 4 years of his career. Fighters who ignore these basics find their athletic prime shortened. There's another slow, avoidable method to wreck a career. And with Adrien Broner did it all. He cut corners, and you cut corners, soon those corners will cut you and cut your career short. And that's what happened to Adrien Broner. That's why he wasn't able to adapt. He wasn't able to evolve. Great fighters evolve. They add skills, shift styles, respond to aging with tactical intelligence. Broner, who was known originally for speed and timing, sometimes failed to adapt when attributes declined. But his attributes declined because he didn't take care of himself. And it's pretty unfortunate. So rather than reinventing his approach to suit a change in body, he often attempted to keep fighting in the same mold. Just like Canelo. Come straight forward, high guard, single shot delivery system. That's what Adrien Broner was doing. So he's another one of those fighters who failed to update his game. You got to update your game plan. And when you don't do that, you invite predictable decline. The career ends not with a single loss, but with a string of avoidable ones. That's AB all the way. And Canelo could be going on that path too. And then you have the absence of lasting purpose beyond the ring. To most stable fighters, let me tell you something. The most stable fighters build identity layers beyond money, fame. You got mentorship, coaching, discipline projects that keep them grounded. Broner post-prime direction seemed unfocused publicly, which made the transition out of the spotlight very hard. When a fighter lacks a larger mission, they are most likely to chase validation via risky bouts or headline stunts, which accelerate career erosion. Now, try to translate all this into an actionable counsel for fighters who want to avoid Broner and his fate. Start with a financial plan. It's what fighters need to do. Broner should really go around and talk to athletes about what not to do. He ain't have a financial plan. He didn't know what to do when the money arrived. He didn't have a trusted advisor. He didn't prioritize sleep and recovery. He didn't choose a coaching team and stick with them. He didn't build a public persona to focus on craft. Did he take some hard fights? Yes. But he took some just for money, knowing he probably couldn't win. Didn't maintain legal and personal discipline. Didn't create a sense of purpose beyond immediate fame. In other words, Adrien Broner, he should have built a life that makes longevity probable, but he did not. But there's a human side to all this as well, you know what I'm saying? Lack of discipline, hell yeah. But there's a human side to it as well, man. Redemption and recovery. It's possible. But the boxing landscape has many stories of comebacks when an athlete embraces humility and structure. I don't know if Broner can do that right now. He's so far gone in his personal and professional life. But at the same time, Broner's story is not unique. You know, other fighters have, fallen off and returned from public decline, but they were able to fix their underlying problems, accountability, mental health support, and a radical routine change. But when the window narrows with each poor decision, you know what I'm saying? I think the sooner corrections are made, the more likely a meaningful comeback can happen. But Broner's he's just been so caught up in BS that window has just narrowed to the point that I don't know if he can reinsert himself back into the game. But I just think, as I sit here and go over my outline and share my outline with you guys, I just think we need to think about Broner and how he was in his early highlights. Broner was untouchable, man. Untouchable. But then you take a look at what happened after that. Start getting caught up in the nightlife. All of a sudden there was headlines of legal troubles and so on. So there's a whole lot of visual evidence and different things that could make all of these lessons visceral, man. But I just think, for me, it's like the question is, would you rather make the money now or build a legend that pays forever? I think Adrien Broner took the money up front. And as far as building a legend that pays forever, I don't think he did that. But it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Adrien Broner, How to Destroy a Boxing Career in 10 Days. This guy he had so much talent and just threw it all away. You know what I mean? Adrien Broner just threw all of his talent away. To see him in the position he's in now, it's crazy. And, I watched that and I'm 50. You know what I'm saying? But I remember being a young guy. I'm going to talk about my teenage years. We were fools. Fools. But even when we all used to do crazy shit. And I ain't going to get into the stuff we used to do. But let me tell you this. We did some crazy stuff. But there was always, out of all of us, depending on what we were doing, someone who would be like, nah, that's enough. Or nah, let's not do that. But when you don't have anybody who's on your team who can tell you you're wrong, or we shouldn't do that, or, you know, you need to have that voice of reason there. And it just sounds like Adrien Broner's never had that. I guess because he was the guy with all the money, and everybody just kind of, you know, tagged along because I think when you're the guy with the money, you kind of sailed the ship. And people were on the ship. They didn't matter if they were going to crash or not. They were just going along for the ride. You know what I'm saying? But to see AB now, all that talent that he had, just, it's crazy. And to see him the other day in that clip where he was talking about just take me to jail, and the people don't want to take him to jail. You could see people have genuine love for Adrien Broner, but they also have genuine concern. You could see something ain't right with him. If every time you see somebody and they're drunk, that's a problem. And they're high, or they're always getting arrested, or there's always some commotion and chaos surrounding them, that means there's a problem. And no matter how much you love them, at some point in time, you start to distance yourself. And that's what people have done with Adrien Broner, you know what I'm saying? They're like, you know what, man, we're gonna leave you alone. Because I just think with Adrien Broner, each step that he took, he increased the odds of him leaving the sport without his legacy intact, and leaving the sport not on his own terms. I think Adrien Broner, because of his lack of discipline, his poor decision making, I think the sport of boxing pushed him out. When your last resort is to sign with Don King, you know you up shit creek. And even Blair Cobb, they did him a little dirty because he spoke out about Virgil Ortiz and said some things about Peds. You saw what happened to him. De La Hoya got rid of him, and Blair Cobb's been in a downward spiral since. He landed over there with Don King. So Don King matched Blair Cobb with Adrien Broner, and Blair Cobb beat the shit out of Adrien Broner. So good lesson to be learned from Adrien Broner, but he's still got a lot of love. And you know what's unfortunate is Adrien Broner. This is the shit that I will never understand. Why do you want to have love and acceptance from the hood? These areas where people are treacherous. There's nothing cool about making multiples of millions of dollars than going back into a pool hall and shooting pool and drinking and fighting and being places where shooting's happening. That's stupid. But Adrien Broner wants to keep it real, always talking about going back and selling drugs and doing this. Just a bunch of ignorance out of that guy. All that money, man, didn't help him to elevate his life at all. He still remained a dumbass. And that's why he's in the position he's in. Now, I don't know, I ain't jumping in his pocket. I don't know his financial situation, but I don't know how good it is. I hope he's doing well financially. He made a lot of money in boxing. But, you know, when you live in them lifestyles, man, you spend a lot too. So that's where the discipline just wasn't there for this guy. But I don't know. I guess in 5 or 10 years we'll know what's going on with him. But right now it's still kind of too. Well, one thing we know for sure is he's unraveling before our eyes. But we'll see if he hits rock bottom. If he still has some money, that's going to kind of prevent him from hitting rock bottom. But when that money runs out, he'll hit rock bottom. Adrien Broner has all the signs, all the qualities to hit rock bottom and to not care and end up in prison for a very long time. And I don't wish that shit on nobody. Shit, I got arrested a couple of times as a young guy, man. Just going down into the station, that shit is it's just not cool. And we were doing shit. We were breaking curfew and shit. And the other things I did, you know, I ain't gonna get into that, but it's just fucking embarrassing. Breaking curfew at night and shit. But anyway, man, yo, good luck to AB. But if anyone wants to know how to destroy a boxing career in 10 days, all you gotta do is watch Adrien Broner. And you will learn exactly how to do it to perfection. Y'all keep cool. I'm in the breeze. passing the time until a real juicy opportunity comes up to where the reward is great and the